I said I would give electroconvulsive treatment 2 weeks, and if it didn't help, I would kill myself. Little did I know it would thrust me into total psychosis. I was convinced I was dreaming and wanting to wake up, but I couldn't. I was trapped in a waking dream. Kept looking for ways to prove I was alive outside the dream. I couldn't coordinate my hands to feed myself. My eyes were little slits. I had no depth perception. They told me I emitted high-pitched giggles that were quite disturbing. Yet in the midst of all this, when I sat down at the keyboard, my fingers automatically typed out all of my passwords. When my website opened, I had external proof that Jessica existed. I did research on myself. I watched all the videos, looked at the postings, looking for clues as to who I was supposed to be. Who am I if I'm not suicidal? What is life like? It feels anxiously flat, a nervous nothingness. The pills have plugged the holes in my head that let in the gremlins of self-destruction. But those same holes seem to have been the ones that let in air. PTSD is a bitch. The car, train, bus starts moving, it finds its rhythm and velocity. My head loses its own. Some neuropsycho-bio-trigger connection motor movement equals danger. Danger I can't control. Tragedy I can't stop. So I shut down. Is this my reptile brain reacting? I keep falling. Each time I jerk awake, it's a new accident, new impact, new lost. My shrink put me on a drug they've been giving soldiers returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. I took it, but it doesn't really help. It's much easier to traumatize a brain, beat it to a pulp, than to smooth it out again. Prozac is a pact with the devil. He gives you something you long for, in my case, liberation from this out-of-control anxiety and perfectionism that made every day of school a living hell. But in exchange for this relief, he takes something from me, cuts it out with a scalpel, one of life's most elemental drives, sexual desire. It's gone completely for years. Of course, this wreaks havoc on my relationships. Partners leave me in frustration or seek out lovers on the side, and who am I to blame them? I finally asked the doctor if anything can be done. She lays out a stark choice. Which would you prefer? To have the will to live and no libido? Or to be able to reach orgasm but want to die every day. These trade-offs to get something resembling sanity in exchange for losing some of my humanity reminds me of a fairy tale from my childhood. The one where a mermaid falls in love with the prince who walks on land. And a wizard says that he will give her legs and feet so that she can be near her prince. But in exchange, the wizard will take her tongue. And she takes the deal. Isn't that a horrible story to tell children? At night, in bed, when I'm supposed to be resting, I feel something like insects crawling around inside my thighs, running down through my calves, jiggling and they won't stop moving in an endless loop. I desperately thrash my legs around, trying to get the bugs loose from me, like trying to run a marathon all night lying down. Right now, the pills are making me feel verbally constipated, stuck inside myself. Too many feelings, thoughts, fears, frustrations, overfilling the balloon that is my head, and I can't find a channel out. If I'm going to be honest, I'm grateful that with the ongoing help of my psychiatrist, I've been able to achieve a modicum of psychochemical balance in my brain. I know all the subtle and dramatic signs that I'm doing better, that I am even capable of being somewhat social, that I can go to the grocery store without being completely overwhelmed and feeling like my skin is too thin to tolerate the chaos of the environment and the choices between 30 different kinds of breakfast cereal. I'm now sufficiently relaxed to let the lighter parts of me show. And I'm sleeping okay most of the time. I'm thinking about living more than I'm thinking about dying. It's not that I never think about dying, but the balance has shifted. I even feel confident enough to start making plans. Nothing too drastic or exciting, but, make an appointment for 3 days from now and then be able to go to that appointment. It's a major accomplishment. I don't give all the credit to the pills, but without them, I lack the traction to do the work. I may hate this fact, but right now, that's how it is. You just have to try harder. Get out there and do it. Just make yourself. Nobody wants to get out of bed early for work, but they do. You're lazy. You're making excuses. You're weak. You think you're special. Even people who supposedly love me, people who supposedly understand the nature of major depression, they still say these things to me, sometimes wrapped in prettier packages. And so this is what I tell them. All right, go bench press 500 pounds now. You can do it. Oh, you can't? Okay. How about 300? No? How about 150? Okay, if you're in training, maybe you could do that. on a good day. But this week, you have the flu, and the weight falls on your chest. Nobody blames you or calls you a weakling or tells you just have to try harder if you have a fever and you're vomiting and you can barely walk. It's understandable. But if I have no desire to be alive, which is a damn sight more serious than a fever, and I can't force myself to get out of bed, even to go to the bathroom, why do you think I should just be able to bench press anything, or go to work, or make it to a meeting, or answer the phone, for that matter? When I'm in this state, I can't even open the mail. Imagine if you were driving and your car gets stuck on snowy ice or in deep mud. You keep pressing down on the gas, but you don't get anywhere. The wheels just spin wildly. What's wrong? You have no traction. You can't get out. In fact, the more you press the gas, the more stuck you get. When I'm in an incredibly deep depression, I can't enjoy anything, even my favorite things. Yet my coworkers call me a slacker, and my friends give me advice from the normal world, like, oh, when I feel down, I go to yoga and it makes me feel better. Or, you just have to chill the fuck out, or have a cocktail. They're completely missing that this is not just a little down. This is on the same scale of bad as chemotherapy. So please don't think I'm lazy. I'm trying as hard as I can. I need the equivalent of chemo. And if I'm on serious drugs or had electroshock therapy, believe me that the side effects suck the life force out of me, and I am indeed fighting for survival. Every afternoon lately, it rises within me, this tide of despair. I know it sounds melodramatic, but it's true. I'm having a daily ebbing of my will to live. I can't tell if it's a pain soaking me as the day goes on, or that all that is good and alive in me getting squeezed out. I just know that I'm left desolate, rough, cratered. I want to die. Or truthfully, I really just want to be dead. I don't actually have the nerve or enough energy to kill myself. So I just long to be hit by a truck or something. Getting back to the car that was sliding and spinning the wheels in the snow. Okay, how do you usually get out of that situation? You put something under the tires, right? You put something like a piece of wood under the tires, and that gives the wheels traction. You might even get a push from several friends at the same time. When the pills are working, they are like the board under the tires. When they're working, the pills give me traction so that my efforts do more than spin the tires. Are you a danger to yourself or to others? In the United States, the answer to this question determines whether or not someone should be checked into the psychiatric ward of a hospital. If you've been in an accident and you're hovering in the space between life and death, you go to the hospital and they put you in intensive care. And doctors and nurses take your blood, your temperature, measure everything, and they check on you every hour. The people like me who want to cause the accident on purpose are also in grave danger and need to be under observation 24 hours a day. The first time I was in the psych ward was because I told them that I would rather drive into oncoming traffic than have to go back to my job. So when you sign yourself into the hospital, that's voluntary. But after that, nothing is. You have surrendered your rights, because obviously you weren't doing a very good job of taking care of yourself. No pens, no pencils, no nothing that could be used with some great imagination against yourself or someone else. Not even shoelaces. No staying in bed. You have to eat. Mandatory group therapy several times a day. And most of all, take your medicine 3 times a day. We all line up and a nurse gives you your pills in a tiny paper cup, and then they hand you a glass of water, and you have to take the pills in front of them. Afterwards, they check under your tongue and inside your cheeks to make sure you don't try to hide them, because that's what some people do when they really don't want to get better. But there is almost no chance that you will get better in the hospital. Whether you improve or not is a crapshoot. I came to realize that, at least in my case, the psych ward is like a holding tank to keep me from doing something stupid and irreversible to myself. It's like being in jail overnight after you were drunk. You might get a little bit better, but not really better. In that sense, I'd have to say that the psych ward has done its job for me. I mean, if I hadn't realized that I was in mortal danger, but with some shred left that wanted to live, or if I didn't have access to a decent hospital, I might be one of the people that I read about in the paper. I couldn't have children for 3 reasons. 1, I would be at a high risk of suicide when I stopped taking my pills in order to be pregnant, because you got to stop taking the pills to avoid birth defects. And even if I didn't kill myself, I would be in such a bad state that I can't imagine it would be a good environment to grow a baby. 2, I am too mentally unstable to be a decent parent. If sometimes I can't feed or bathe my own damn self for days on end, how could I possibly feed and bathe my child? And 3, as a teenager, a moody teenager, I made a promise to my unborn babies that I wouldn't risk passing on to them an illness that could make even a child want to end their life. Part of the danger of wanting to kill yourself is how extremely horribly unbearable it feels. And the other part of the danger is that it seems all-consuming and that the pain will go on forever. I feel like it's a lot of growth and success that now I know that even when I have these thoughts of ending my life, they are only thoughts. They are not me, and certainly not all of me. They are a fierce turbulence through which I will pass. Kind of like on an airplane. When they tell you to fasten your seatbelt, there's turbulence ahead, and you think the plane's gonna crash and you're all gonna die, but almost always, it passes, you're okay, you don't die. I had the great privilege to have a semester-long course with one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. And she's an incredible person, artist, activist, etc. And I really learned a lot from her. And that learning continued when she published her memoir of her life and how it led to creating Black Lives Matter. And the part that really hit me over the head was her telling about one of her brothers who suffers with mental illness and how they never had the resources to even diagnose it or know what was going on, let alone even try different kinds of treatment. And as so often, too often, happens for lower income, particularly Black, African American men, his mental illness was criminalized. He had some kind of episode in public, and they locked him up for a long time. And they tortured him and abused him, and everybody beat on him, which, of course, made everything much, much worse. And I had this horrible kind of shame in the sense that, you know, I'm always so deep in my own pain and feeling sorry for myself that it hadn't occurred to me. I didn't know that I'm one of the incredibly lucky ones in the United States, that I have a supportive family, I have good health care, I have access to all these psychiatrists and pills and hospitals, and even if they don't necessarily fix everything, it's a hell of a lot better than being locked up for years and getting tortured. So I guess it's just 10 times more horrible. I can say anything I want about my pain and my experience, but we all have to remember that I am one of the lucky ones. And of course, the other really sick thing about it is that the reason the largest mental institution in the United States is a prison in Los Angeles is because prisons make money for private corporations. Setting up community mental health clinics is not a big profit-making venture. And so it just continues that so many people are locked up because they acted out in public or, you know, did something because of their illness, and instead of getting treatment, they get locked up. And I have read that in the prisons in Los Angeles, they do have treatment. And this is just the really fucked up thing, that sometimes the first place people get treatment is in prison. That is totally wrong. It's a serious sign of a sick society. So everybody knows that kangaroos live in Australia, elephants wander around different parts of Africa, and bears live in the mountains of North America. No one disputes that. But if we apply that reasoning to human beings, it seems to fall apart. I studied climate change and ecology in university and grad school. And one of the concepts that really meant a lot to me is carrying capacity. So this is the idea that, like, a desert can support lots of different kinds of life, lizards and antelopes and cactus, but you can't plant a rainforest there, or a golf course, or millions and millions of people with swimming pools and gardens that get irrigated every day. Why? Because you run out of groundwater. You cause serious ecological problems and sometimes even collapse. So I think about this regarding myself in terms of, I kind of feel like a desert, that I can support a lot of life, but I can't support a 60 to 80 hour work week chained to a computer, or driving in 2 hours of heavy Los Angeles traffic when I have post-traumatic stress disorder from a massive tragic accident. Los Angeles, for example, is not a place that's good for me to be. It's kind of like if I'm an elephant trying to live in a small apartment on the 12th floor of a building in New York City. It's just not a good idea. And yet, the society, I feel, and all of the ingrained things that I've grown up with about how I have privilege, so therefore I need to save the world. I don't realize until now that everything's fallen apart, that I'm an elephant, or that I'm a desert. We also know that, almost nothing lives in a healthy way in hazardous waste or with polluted drinking water, right? That doesn't surprise us that people get sick from that. But it seems like it's really hard for a big part of the population of the United States to understand that, things about our society are making people sick. And racism is one of the most pernicious of those. There are lots of white people who say, slavery's been over for 400 years. Grow up, get over it. Without realizing that there's intergenerational trauma, that if you still can't get a job because of your skin color, or you get locked up or even shot and killed when a white person would get off with a warning, that's like living in hazardous waste. And that is going to make people sick, mentally sick. When I talk about some of these ideas, particularly when I say that I get really sick in the United States and I do better in Latin America, they're kind of offended, kind of like, oh, well, you're a U.S. citizen. You have what so many people in the world want. What is wrong with you? Stop complaining. Without really seeing that, if I leave, there's more room for somebody else.